brings you nothing but joy, and I hope the new year brings you nothing but good fortune. It's a particular pleasure to have a member of the federal parliament with us, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you very much for coming. We're honored each time you come. Welcome, Michael. We're happy to have you here. Today, before we go to the business of the meeting, I unfortunately have to note that this will be the final public board meeting of 3 of our founding directors of the new Metrolinx. And I want to take a moment or two to note the contributions of Joe Halstead, Richard Corso, and Doug Turnbull. All 3 of these directors are founding directors of the new Metrolinx, appointed in April of 2009. And as they cycle to the end of 6 years of service, following the province's normal routine, their service will come to an end when their appointments expire early in the new year. And we recognize this was the last public meeting we would have before then. They are still very much have duties to perform until the last day of their appointments, but this would be the last opportunity I would have to say how grateful Metrolinx is for their service. Joe Halstead came to this board after a remarkable career of public service at both the City of Toronto and the province of Ontario. He arrived at the board, he was appointed to the board because the then Premier of the province said, I'm not setting up Metrolinx without having Joe Halstead on the board. And we're in a very consultative process constructing the board of Metrolinx when I got a call from the Premier's then Chief of Staff saying, the consultation's over, we're appointing Joe Halstead. And he's been here as an extraordinarily valuable member of the board. He's chaired the governance committee of the board. He's done a wonderful job for us. He's brought us such wisdom and experience about the region, about the city, about people, about everything that mattered to our work. Joe, you've been a wonderful, wonderful colleague. It's been, some of us knew you well before you joined the board, but for all of us who've had the privilege of getting to know you, thank you very, very much for your company, your friendship, your service to the board. And I invite you to stand up and receive a plaque from us. Congratulations and thank you very much. And Joe, as you know, it's our practice to allow the retiring director to say anything he wishes at this point. Joe.
Thanks, Chair and colleagues. It's been a real pleasure to be part of this organization. It's been a wonderful 6 years. I have met some wonderful people, and frankly, I'm so proud of the work that is being done here at Metrolinx, because obviously it has a great impact on the province, the city, and the region. So I'm just delighted to be a part of it. There's no question in my mind that Metrolinx is the best board I've ever served on, and I've served on a few. So by far the best. And I think it's because of the people who are at Metrolinx. The directors, we've attracted some wonderful people, some eminent people who are serving and will serve in the future on Metrolinx. The staff, Bruce and your staff, have been just wonderful. So it's all of those things that comes together to make this a wonderful board. So thanks for the privilege, thanks for the opportunity, and I'll be watching.
Thank you, Joe. Richard Corso is our man from Hamilton. Richard was involved in the drafting of the big move as a great volunteer and assisting in that process. Got to know Rob McIsaac and the team well. He came to the board with a deep interest in the region, but a particular interest in the movement, not just of people, but the movement of goods. And our mandate is about moving people and moving goods. And Richard has reminded us of that part of our mandate on a regular basis. He's chaired our customer advisory committee with our Go Transit customers. He's been a very strong voice for his part of the region, but he's also been a very strong voice for principles of planning and the evolution of Metrolinx, and has made a really long-standing, valuable, lasting contribution to our work. And I think, Richard, you're just part of the distinctiveness of your contribution is being, you know a lot of stuff about a lot of things the rest of us didn't know about, it's been an education for us. Not only a pleasure having you as a colleague, but for me and I think for the rest of us, you've been a great teacher of us about whole areas that you have deep expertise in that we needed to have in the board, and you've been terrific. So Richard, thank you very much for your 6 years of service as well. Richard Corson. Your turn to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for those very kind comments. Like Joe, I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to serve with you in an organization that is doing so much good for our region. You know, you talked about learning from me. I have to tell you, I learned a lot from you. This has been one of the most amazing experiences of my career, and I'm going to have a hard time trying to top this. But I will be on the sidelines like Joe and Doug, watching carefully as to what you're doing and being a cheerleader at the same time in my hometown of Hamilton. I want to say also thank you to some of the staff. Bruce, you and the team, you got an amazing group of folks here that are very talented, the best I've seen in industry anywhere around the world, and I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different places. Special thanks to Leslie. We've spent a lot of time together working through lots of issues, so thank you for your kind support and ear to listen to what I had to say. Mary and Paula on the customer service side, I really enjoyed the opportunity to work with the group, our customer advisory group. These are people who actually ride the system on a regular basis, and having an opportunity to work with them and listen to what they had to say about what we do, and more importantly, the passion they actually have about the work that we do on a daily basis. So it's been a thrill. I'll miss it, for sure, but I'll be there cheering you on. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. If Joe Halstead was here because the Premier insisted, Doug Turnbull's here because the Minister of Finance insisted. He said at the time, Rob, this organization is going to cost me a lot of money, and I want a guy who's really good about money to keep a close eye on the organization. And Doug is one of Canada's most respected figures in public finance, as a deputy chairman at TD Securities and working in the government finance field. And so Doug came onto the board with a strong financial perspective, but has gone from that starting point to just being a fabulously good contributor to everything we have done for 6 years. Doug's had an exemplary record of attendance. I think you may have missed half of one meeting in 6 years. You've been unbelievably supportive and helpful to all of us. You've been a strong voice on financial matters, but never limited yourself to a financial perspective. And you've brought great value to our work, fitting it in among the many other forms of community service that you have done in Toronto and the province. So you've been a wonderful colleague, Doug. I've learned a ton from you as well about our work and how to think about it and how it interrelated to the broader perspective of public finance and the province's directions. We appreciate all you've done. We appreciate your loyalty and your friendship, and we hope your friendship will continue, because it's a deep one for not just for me, but for all the others around the table. Congratulations, and thank you very much, Douglas Turnbull.
Well, thanks, Rob. About a decade ago, I took the Rotman Institute of Corporate Directors program. You should all know that Rob Pritchard is prominently featured in the curriculum for that program because he's recognized as the leading corporate governance expert in this country. And Rob, it's just been a real delight to be part of this board and to be able to watch how you handle all the big, complicated issues that you and Bruce and this organization go through in dealing with public policy, but also dealing with the very real commercial business issues that arise in this organization every single day. You know, everyone wants to do something meaningful in life, I believe, and I've been an investment banker for 36 years. think I've been involved in lots of neat transactions in this country. Nothing compares to the 6 years I've spent on this board. This has been a really fantastic organization, and to be part of building something that is meaningful, something that is going to be here 100 years from now and is going to make profound changes, and is today making profound changes in the way people move around and the way this region builds prosperity, is just a huge privilege and a real honor. This is a terrific organization, and notwithstanding what you read in the newspaper about frustrations of moving around this city and all the very real concerns of transit, don't be focused on that. Really be focused on all the good things that are happening in this region and all the work that's being done by Metrolinx and by the TTC and by the various transit agencies in this area. Trust me when I say that, 20 years from now, the work that's being laid down right now is just going to be so evident to everyone. That's all I want to say. Thank you, Rob, and Bruce. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all three of you for really exemplary service of the public interest and for all you've done for all of us. And let's keep in touch. We need your continued support and encouragement and advice at any time, even from off the board. With that, Bruce, I turn to you for the CEO's report.
Great, thanks very much. And I try to start every meeting with a bit of a enumeration of the various awards that the organization individuals have received, and I've got 4 that I'd just like to reference here this morning. First of all, for the second year in a row, I'm pleased to say that Metrolinx was identified as one of the GTA's top 100 employers, to recognize the kind of employee engagement that we've been building and the sense of culture and place of work here at Metrolinx, as well as our commitment to customer service. So this is really a recognition of the entire corporation and the various people who are providing service to our customers on a day-to-day basis. I've got the plaque up here, and I'm very pleased and proud to be able to report that we were recognized once again this year. Secondly, I've got another piece of trophy here, the acrylic one, which is Excellence in Corporate Responsibility Award, again in the area of employee engagement, but also more focused on the work that we've done in terms of energy management and trying to make sure that our operations are as efficient as possible in terms of conserving and reducing the amount of energy that we use in terms of moving people and services around this region. This award is granted from the Canadian Business for Social Responsibility, as well as the Green Living Enterprises, and again, it's a testament to a whole variety of people in the organization who've made energy conservation and sustainability a big part of our practice here at Metrolinx. There are 2 individual awards I also wanted to recognize, and first, that our General Counsel, Executive Vice President, and Corporate Secretary, Mary Martin, was identified with a Woman in Leadership Award, and this is really in recognition of her expertise and the management of legal departments, and more specifically, her focus on mentorship and leadership development in the legal practice. And this is a really important part of our culture organization in terms of succession and being an attractive place to work, and I would like to congratulate Mary on this recognition. And I saved, I think, a really important one for last. Every year, the Canadian Urban Transit Association identifies an individual in the transit practice who's done something extraordinary in terms of heroism, in terms of protecting our customers and dealing with issues. And I'm pleased to report that Sean Jeffrey, who I'll ask to come up in a moment, has been recognized by CUTA this year. Sean is a construction supervisor on our Union Station revitalization project here. He also uses the GO train as part of his day-to-day commuting. And in November 2013, he was at the Mimical station when one of the passengers who was exiting the train stumbled and fell into the space between the train and the platform as the train was about to leave the station. And this customer was very close to the wheels. Sean very quickly identified what was a very, very dangerous situation, leaped in, pulled the lady back from the area of danger, held her against a platform wall to make sure that she was protected while the train was moving. And for this, avoided what could have been a very, very terrible tragedy. And Sean, for your heroism, your bravery in terms of leaping into that situation, recognizing the danger and resolving it, congratulations, thank you, and keep up the
Just another average Metrolinx employee.
That's right. Just before we go into the regular agenda, I know that we have a very full agenda. There are just 3 announcements I'd just like to emphasize over the past couple of weeks that I think are really important about our ongoing commitment to increasing service and providing more choices for the region. Just this week, Minister Del Duca and Greg Percy were up in Milton to celebrate the launch of an additional set of trains coming down from Milton, 1 new train trip in the morning, an additional train trip in the afternoon. Essentially adds 10% to the capacity that we have on one of our busiest corridors, and also represents the implementation of our ongoing expansion of service. And each one of these train sets that we see along our system is an investment of about $40 million. And you will be seeing, this is just an indication of more services that you'll be seeing over the course of the coming year. On December 1st, the Minister and Greg again made an announcement of a new GO station on the Richmond Hill corridor, which is under construction now at Gormley. And this station, which will be opening in 2016, will be providing another option for our customers to access the system. It will provide 850 parking spaces for our customers, and we know that parking is a significant element of attracting new ridership. And it's also part and parcel of a program to expand our layover facilities, which I know isn't the most exciting part of our business, but having layover facilities at the end of our rail corridors means more reliability for our customers, and it means reduced operating costs as we have fewer non-revenue trips to deliver services out to the end of the line. So that's another commitment that's just been made. And then the last one I wanted to reference was an announcement on November 24th of a significant purchase that we've made for fully accessible buses. And we've entered a contract with Alexander Dennis Limited to supply 253 accessible low-floor double-decker buses to replace some of our high-floor single-level coaches that are currently in operation over the next 5 years. And probably as importantly, Alexander Dennis has made the commitment to a chassis manufacturing facility in the province. So it's also bringing, for the first time with this company, 30 jobs in terms of a manufacturing facility. So we're very pleased about that. As well as the contract includes an option for 150 additional buses that can be triggered as we expand services going forward. So I wanted to reference those 3 expansion projects because I think it's an important part of our ongoing commitment to deliver more service to our customers. And with that, Chair, I know we have a very full agenda, so I'm going to suggest that we'll go on to Regional Express Rail, and Greg and the team will come up to take us through that material.
Thank you very much. And just as we go to that, Greg, if you'd come and take the floor, I just want to say that one of our directors, Mr. Dobson, has declared a potential conflict of interest dealing with SmartTrack and Regional Express Rail, and pending clarification of what his role may be doing work for the city to err on the side of avoiding any possible conflict. Ian has declared a conflict and will not participate in the conversation here or in closed sessions when we deal with these matters until the dust settles on that. So thank you very much for that, Ian. Greg, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. What I'd like to do today is give an update to the board as to how we've moved forward on Regional Express Rail and the sheer volume of work that's been done to get us to this point.
Can you at the back hear all right? No. You're speaking more quietly than usual. Double the volume, please.
Not a problem. I'll put on my coaching voice. So today we'll walk through the preliminary business case results on RER and highlight in general terms how positive they are. We'll also speak to the many areas of congruence that exist between RER and SmartTrack, and also make reference to how we're moving forward on both the public and shareholder engagement strategy. And lastly, we'll touch on some of the early actions that we've both identified and we started moving on to begin delivery of the RER program. Let's start on first principles. The RER is part of the Ontario budget commitment of $29 billion over 10 years across Ontario for transportation infrastructure, of which $15 billion is dedicated to transit funding in the GTHA. RER does build on the first wave of big move projects, such as the Eglinton Crosstown LRT. It also continues to expand towards our two-way all-day GO Transit rail service program. It includes the proposal to electrify GO rail service on Metrolinx-owned corridor and to deliver service as frequent as 15 minutes in both directions. RER also states the province will work with Metrolinx and the municipalities on the prioritization of next wave projects through the use of business case analysis. And lastly, we set out the opportunity to work with the federal government to secure federal funding through the Building Canada Fund. So RER is, as we've spoken to in a number of other board meetings, it is a transformative program and creates new travel choices across the GTHA. First principles, it's an electrified service on all corridors that Metrolinx owns with 15-minute frequencies in core areas. It provides service in both directions through weekdays, in evenings, and on weekends. It's a mix of all-stop and limited stop service to meet demand and reduce travel times. The phasing of RER delivery will continue or consider business case analysis, ridership growth, and the appropriate sequencing of infrastructure projects and other evidence-based factors. And new services can be introduced in each and every year of the 10-year program. And this was very important for us to give a stream of ROI to the province and to the citizens of the GTHA. The RER work plan, it's really got four main steps. And what this means is that we will work with the province and staff and many others to advance the RER work plan starting with our service concept. We've been working on this since June in order to define the frequency and type of service on each of our 7 corridors. It's an iterative process and it dovetails perfectly with the infrastructure needs in order to identify what is the infrastructure and the equipment that will enable the RER service concept to happen. And you don't get this right the first time. It is iterative. We've gone back and forth a number of times, at least, frankly, 20 times, to make sure we're getting it right. The third step is a phasing plan to identify how you actually sequence that work, keeping in mind that the more infrastructure you build, the more service you start up, the more challenging it is and more expensive it is to build infrastructure. So we wind up optimizing how that works on each of the 7 corridors. And lastly, and by no means not extremely important, is how we engage as we walk out with this program and engage municipalities, key stakeholders, railways, municipalities, and so forth, and certainly the public. So in terms of expanding a little bit on what service concept means, the service concept is a definition of frequency and the type of service on each corridor. And it's a multifaceted analysis because it looks at ridership, infrastructure, how you implement by strategy, current activity level in the corridor, and many other pieces of variables that drive the decision. The types of decisions we make, the frequency and type of service, whether it's peak period, off-peak period, core, other parts of the network, whether the are closer to the downtown core, to the hub Union Station. Our options of service, it's really a portfolio review in terms of all stop, limited stop, or some combination of both. And speed is really important because speed drives capacity. So when we look at speed, we're looking at electrification, how that impacts speed. We're looking at other types of infrastructure improvement, and how we prioritize that investment is a function of what the link is between infrastructure and speed of service. So for the service concept, the starting point was the vision of delivering the 15-minute electrified service on Metrolinx-owned corridors over 10 years. That 10-year time frame does serve as a very good benchmark for translating this vision into a service concept. So as we said, we've talked about alternative service concept on how we can deliver on the RER program commitment. Our next step is to start sampling those schedules to look at more technical operational needs in terms of how trains meet, how you sequence trains, and the capacity that drives the service. And they, as I say, they are hand in glove. We think that we will have the recommend service concept completed by the end of first quarter of 2015. And at that point, we will start releasing it to the province and to other key stakeholders, because their views on how we define that service are very important. So we will continue to tweak that service concept until we make sure that it's right. So then we have to bridge from the service concept to the infrastructure plan. And this particular slide gives you some of the things that we look at, whether it's new tracks, and today we have a mix of single track corridor and multi-track corridor. But when you're looking at a bidirectional service, and if you're looking at a mix of express and all-stop or hybrids of that, that will define the track requirement by corridor.
Greg, just on that,
Sure.
is there any place that we don't need at least 2 tracks to implement this service? Like, in the end, do we have to have at least double track everywhere on all corridors?
Suffice to say that to deliver on that level of commitment, you're going to need likely 2 tracks in most places. We're still doing the analysis that will confirm where, and in some cases 2 will become 3. But we're still working on the analysis.
Just give us an insight into why it might be less than 2 in any place. I don't quite understand. If you got trains every 15 minutes going both ways, how can you not need at least 2 tracks?
Sure. In some parts of our network, if the optimization decision is that we would start with peak service only, then that would be single track only. But if in other places where it's a mix of bidirectional, express and 15-minute, that will push the track alignment out to 2 and 3. And in some cases even 4, as we already have on the Lakeshore West and East service. For grade separations, as you get to this level of service, grade separations are a major infrastructure design element that you have to factor in. Because if in some cases you have bidirectional 15-minute headway service, you're talking about a train at every 7.5 minutes in some places. To create that very important level of safety, those are the higher candidates for grade separations. There's other options as well, and working with the municipalities, we'll determine what those are by specific location. In some cases where you have today a rail intersection point, and we have a number of those, it makes a lot of sense to physically separate those 2 tracks in 2 different directions. That enables both the goods movement and the commuter service, and in some cases, intercity passenger also. For stations, yes, we're going to look at are there key places to add stations. To add stations and to add track, then you have to look at adding platforms. We have side platforms that may become island platforms. That's the level of detail that we get into as we do the infrastructure planning. Lastly, we do the phasing of the construction to, again, optimize the introduction of new service and infrastructure build, acknowledging the fact that one can make the other more onerous, but we will optimize that by corridor. I'd like to, for the next 5 slides, to talk a little more about the business case and how it links into the RER work plan. This is a schematic that gives you a sense for the really the iterative nature of how business case. We've involved our business case team from day one in the work planning at a very micro detail level, because business case is an evidence-based system to make sure that we get it right in terms of defining service concept and infrastructure plan. To give a little more detail on how we use the business case, as I said, it is an evidence-based process, and it enables our decision-making to be tighter and to make sure we get better value for our investment dollar. That business case is well underway, and we've got some preliminary results I'll speak to shortly. But basically, it takes the hardcore benefits of service delivery, heightened service delivery, and saying what are the broader economic and community impacts and ridership impacts of doing that higher level of service. So it's not a simple nuts and bolts look at how many trains equal how many rides. There's a broader economic impact that the detail level of our business case planning and model enable us to capture. So it's the types of things, and these are some fairly important bullets, the 5 bullets. It takes a life cycle approach over an extended 60-year period. It uses a baseline of 2014 prices. It uses a discount rate of 3.5%, which I think is a realistic for net present value. It looks at not just capital expenditures, but keep in mind every time you build infrastructure, there's an operating cost trailer to it, ridership, revenue, and the broader economic benefits of increased service. The current analysis is based on what we do today. It's the existing system. The baseline case does not look at new stations or fare integration. These are things that need to be added in as we tighten the dynamic of the model that we're using. In terms of preliminary business case results, I think the good news is the RER generates positive benefits in part and in large part to attracting new customers and reducing congestion. Our initial results suggest that the benefits could exceed costs by a factor of 3 to 4 times, and that's very significant. Ridership on Go could more than double from the current levels of just under 200,000 daily trips to over 450,000 daily trips over the next 17 years out to 2031. Through RER, it's estimated that Go's share of trips over 10 kilometers in length could triple from the current 3.6% also by 2041. So RER diverts many trips off the road and highway network, and this also leads into a more favorable review in terms of benefits from congestion relief. RER does have the potential to reduce crowding on existing transit lines. RER will make better use of existing infrastructure, building ridership more cost effectively. And we're using the business case to interrogate our service concept and infrastructure models so that it's looping around and it comes out with a better decision. As we consider the impact of adding new stations to Toronto and the surrounding regions, as well as greater fare and service integration, these are further enhancements for our business case model. And we think that will also to give a favorable review and enhance our cost factors as well. Again, to support the 3 to 4 times that we're hoping will be there. Additional work is underway on the analysis. This is a ton of work that's being done by a very bright young team that we have inside Metrolinx, and they're working, as I say, hand in glove, and they're using outside advice as well to make sure that we are making sure we look full circle as to what we build and the service concept behind it. I'll touch on this just briefly. I think we've captured some of this already. What's in progress right now is the refinement of the capital costs and the service concept in tandem. We have rolled in the operating costs, which are a driver into the benefits case analysis. We are looking at ridership models to make sure that we're not being over-optimistic nor ultra-conservative, to make sure that we have it is properly balanced. Fare revenue predictions are also being done on a quarter-to-quarter basis. Economic benefits I spoke of earlier are much broader and are all-encompassing, and they too will be rolled in to make sure the business case is as accurate as it can be. We're taking a look at sequencing. So these are the critical path drivers to the business case. How you sequence the infrastructure investment impacts how you generate the business case numbers. Lastly, we're looking at SmartTrack integration and other major initiative business case impacts to make sure that we've properly integrated those large pieces of work into the RER business case itself. So what's coming up on the business case are to make sure that we've properly captured the wider economic benefits development, to take a good look at the socioeconomic benefits development. We are looking station by station from an access point of view to look at how that fits into the business case review. SmartTrack costs and benefits, there's a team set up, and I'll speak a little bit more of that shortly. And we're taking a look at the development around stations, the land value capture. Those are very important drivers into the business case. Lastly, we're making sure that the fare integration strategies that we're also working on are actually factored into the business case also.
Just before you leave that page.
Yep.
As you build a business case, how do you think about the implications for local transit providers as they intersect with our stations and the increased frequency. Because I recall when we did the Lakeshore 30-minute service, which has been a knockout success, some of our municipal partners raised questions about the integration of their need to meet more trains and the integration of them. How does that fit into the business case analysis if there's an additional cost to the municipality of providing service to meet more frequent trains? Just methodologically, how do you put the two together?
Sure. And I think fundamentally, by increasing intensity of GO rail service, if you don't match that with an equal intensity at the local transit level, then you're underserving the marketplace. So, and we will have those conversations with the municipality as we do a rollout of this in the next few months. But into the business case, I mean, I don't know if Mike Sutherland is here. Mike, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but I'll take a shot at it. Basically, the better you serve those municipalities, the better the economic capture you're going to make that drives into the business case. It will also optimize your ability to generate ridership. So, Mike, do you want to? Is there anything to add to that? Sure, come on up.
Mike, I'm trying to get at, Mike, how you think about it in the business case analysis. I realize there's a cost implication to provide more service by the local provider, and we'll worry about that, down the line in the engagement with the municipalities. But how does it fit in conceptually to the BCA analysis?
Sure. So Greg mentioned the station-by-station analysis. So we need to get into more detail at every single station, and that gets into how many buses serve the station, how many buses could be needed to serve the station. There's always an upside and a downside. So on the downside could be that a significant new amount of service is required to serve the station and bring people to the station. That might be a good thing because it might give people more travel options, better opportunities to use a local bus service that today might not be as good as it could be in the future. On the other hand, at a very incremental level, you can generate new revenue from riders. So if you've got a bus route that is only running half full today because it's not very frequent and there's not as many trains as we might like, if we don't have to add another bus, then you're running a full bus, and that's new revenue and new riders. So I don't want to go into much more detail than that. There's a lot of work involved.
You are going station by station as you think about the service level, the new service level, what it means for the local service provider and how that integrates into the analysis.
That's right.
Right down to every station.
That's right.
Wow. It's good. It's really good.
I think what's important too is you do a microanalysis such as station by station, but then you step back and you're doing a full network review as well. Because our system is not run by corridors, we have a network-based system, so there's synergies between both, the network view and the micro view.
Rahul?
Since we're talking about this, just to build on this, I want to just focus on the wider economic benefits and the socioeconomic benefits part for just a second. And I think one of the very appealing parts of all of this is the catalytic effects we're hoping and we're going to be looking at that are going to actually add value in those spaces. So my question is as you go forward, it's a gray area, but things like job creation, economic development, whether it's just in the city or regionally, would be very helpful to bring forward to us so we can appreciate some of that stuff and begin to track and measure it would be very helpful. And the other part of it is to connect that into what are we doing to enable those things specifically. And some of the things like community benefits agreements and of the sort and other items like that I think are important as a part of the narrative supporting the BCA as it comes forward. So don't be shy about connecting those dots for us.
I think we can do that quite comfortably. We actually have a parallel initiative, one of many, our sustainability program that is really generating more structure as to how we want to approach community benefits. And that will inform the business case and the RER program overall. And that may be something for consideration for the board in the future, but we started some very good work on defining the sustainability framework for Metrolinx.
You're doing great. Keep going.
Okay, last slide on the business case. Mike, stay here. And just to reiterate, we're planning on a network base. I saw you out of the corner of my eye. So again, top line, we RER and other transit projects will be compared based on quality of life, environmental, and economic criteria to the points made by the board members, using evidence from the business case and other sources. This will, again, we cycle back to this is a 10-year program rollout. Lastly, the preliminary results suggested, business case results suggested RER does provide material relief across the network. And I don't think that's a huge surprise, but it's really important that we have evidence that supports and reinforces what intuitively makes sense, that adding more service adds ridership and is truly a regional benefit. But the business case is the way to make sure that that is evidence-based decision-making. And that's really a fundamental to the overall program. So I'd like to talk a little bit now about SmartTrack. So you can escape now, Mike and Leslie.
Just before Mike goes, Mike, I'd like you to address one more topic. Mike just got married and just got back from his honeymoon. How was it? Since you're on television, everything working out all right?
It was fantastic.
I think Mike has a whole new understanding of economic benefits and how they're shared.
Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you.
So with the new mayor in Toronto, SmartTrack proposal has taken an important role in understanding the intersection between SmartTrack as currently defined and RER as the definition is evolving. This particular map highlights it in general terms. It's a schematic of what SmartTrack could be. And it's really hard to read, but I can highlight that the yellow line on there is the TTC Yonge subway, the red line is the TTC Bloor, orange is Eglinton Crosstown, and green is the SmartTrack proposed route. SmartTrack is an all-day, two-way, frequent express service across the city. The intention is use of the Kitchener, the GO Kitchener and GO Stouffville rail corridors, and Eglinton Crosstown west of Mount Dennis. It's 53 kilometers, 22 stops, electrified. The timeline put forward is 7 years to build. Based on the TTC fare system, Metrolinx will deliver and operate the system. We're looking at a $2.5 billion proposed funding from the City of Toronto, and it will, of course, require City Council approval. I think it's worth spending a few minutes to talk about the congruence between SmartTrack and RER. And there are many areas of congruence that exist, including the level of service, use of corridors, and electrification. So Metrolinx and the City of Toronto are working together and cooperatively to develop what the proposed converged program looks like. So key topics that are being discussed are integration on a network basis between SmartTrack and RER, and what does that really mean on a corridor capacity basis. It's looking at integration with TTC services at RER stations. What are those new station locations, fare policy, what are the impacts on the Eglinton West Corridor, and of course, most certainly very importantly is funding and the actual delivery timeline and phasing. This next slide gives a little more context to the routing, and I'm sure some of you have seen variations of this before. But certainly the routing to top line that, it comes down the Stouffville GO corridor, comes down through the Union Station rail corridor, up the Kitchener former western subdivision of CN, and then the famous left turn on the Eglinton corridor. So that's in general terms the routing. Obviously much more micro analysis has to be done on how that works. And as I say, we've got the right folks talking to each other to make sure that analysis is done so we have a much better read on the congruence between the two programs. For that discussion, for that review, the next steps are Metrolinx and the City of Toronto are well into setting up this joint program committee to ensure that we have a coordinated approach to planning, to make sure that we coordinate the public outreach and engagement, and that we certainly have well into our thinking the advancement of SmartTrack as a major piece of RER.
Greg, can you or Bruce tell us a bit more about the Joint Program Committee? Who's in charge and who's on it or how it works? Just a bit of color? Or
Sure.
is it premature?
So Leslie's come to the table, and she's actually been holding the pen in terms of the drafting the terms of reference for the group. So Leslie should probably give a bit of an overview of that.
So just very briefly, the committee is composed of representatives from Metrolinx, Ministry of Transportation, City of Toronto, and the TTC. It is we are about to develop, we have actually received an agreement by all parties on the terms of reference. And the goal really is to make sure that we are coordinating and advancing in unison around the numerous both the decision-making points for the different organizations to move the SmartTrack and RER pieces forward. We actually have our first meeting tomorrow, a kickoff meeting tomorrow, and we will be meeting very frequently, at least for startup, in particular to assist the city as they advance their first report, the staff report to council on SmartTrack early in the new year.
And do you expect to make those terms of reference public at some point, and if so, when?
I don't think we have a problem. I will check with the other partners, but I don't see a problem sharing that at all.
Are you doing the engagement piece now?
No.
No, I am.
Thanks.
So the next 5 slides will detail a bit more on public and stakeholder engagement. And it's an understatement to say that an effective engagement is critical to make sure that the RER gets going in the right way. We do appreciate actually the patience of the municipalities and other key stakeholders as we do the service concept and infrastructure planning to make sure we get that right. So what we roll out does make sense, but certainly it's important for us to engage their comments and levels of interest in different aspects of the RER program. So the program itself, we already spoke about extensive construction and how we roll out the service obviously has an impact on both communities and neighborhoods. Local transit services, to your point, Rob, we need to optimize those to make sure that we are in balance in terms of addition of new rail service and the handoff from rail to local transit to get people home. There has to be a close partnership with CNCP and via our intercity passenger provider to make sure that our interests do dovetail with their level of interest and commercial interests, and to make sure the electrification can move forward, particularly on the corridors that are owned by CNCP where they are not electrified, they are diesel corridors. So we have to make sure that they are on side, and there's certain very specific technical requirements to enable electrification to happen. We will develop the appropriate tools and approaches to make sure that when we engage that we are communicating properly and effectively with our various stakeholder groups and that the public and elected officials do understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the phasing of the program itself. In terms of the phases for engagement, it's important that by getting it right in terms of what the service concept and infrastructure is, then we raise that awareness and outreach to make sure everybody else understands what we do. Our thought at this point is the creation of a stakeholder forum and also specific corridor committees. This enables in a more formal way for us to make sure that we message out our intent in terms of timing and impact on communities. This will all be supported by digital engagement as well as other communications activities that are being defined as we speak. Environmental assessments are a really big part of RER, and so we have done a lot of good work with Ministry of Environment to make sure that any existing EAs in process are being amended to include RER considerations, that anything that in addition to that is also moving forward, and we're trying to do it in the most expeditious way possible, and MOE has been very collaborative with us on that. In terms of local community engagement, our intention is to work with the local communities to make sure we don't surprise them in terms of what the scope of construction is and the timing of that construction. And lastly, the launch of new services. We do understand that most municipalities would like us to get the service out tomorrow. We can't do tomorrow, but we're going to do it as soon as practical in terms of making sure we balance the service concept and infrastructure plans. In terms of the regional engagement, the stakeholder committee, as we've scoped it out at this point, is a cross-section of key leaders, business, academic, labor, and other members of the communities to provide counsel to us, advice on RER implementation, how we do it, and so forth. Municipal officials, we've learned a long time ago, it's not good to surprise people. And it's really important that we make sure that we communicate effectively and frequently with our municipal officials to make sure they understand what we're doing and the potential impact on their communities. And we'll touch base. Obviously, this is elected officials and senior staff of communities.
Your volume's going down a little.
Sorry.
Keep it up.
Sorry.
The back are shaking their heads and holding their cup in
Okay.
their ears.
Well, we don't want them falling asleep. So, in terms of corridor engagement, the corridor committees, again, we scope these out, and it's to really make sure that we integrate properly with the local issues to ensure that our implementation makes a lot of sense for those specific communities. So that will happen. We'll come back with more detail on what that looks like. Each of those 7 corridors, our 7 corridors, will have different needs because how we roll out, how we phase out the infrastructure build will not be equal in all corridors. We're going to be doing more per corridor than we've ever done before, and we have to make sure that work is balanced and integrated carefully. Lastly, the membership would reflect the municipalities, the communities, and business interests along the corridors. And we'll be careful, and we'll get some consultation as to the composition of those corridor groups. Once the service concept and infrastructure plan is finalized, and that's coming quickly, we will be in a position to develop an overarching communication community relations strategy, and more specifically in a more micro way, a neighborhood or community-focused approach. Based on our preliminary work to date, there will be a number of environmental assessments as well as some infrastructure enhancements that will need to start ASAP and that will have local impacts. I think that's a fair assumption. And there's a lot of that. I think the sheer scope and the concurrency of projects that we will undertake, we thought we had a lot going on for our Georgetown South program. I think this takes that and morphs it into 3 and 4 times what we have been successful in doing. We'd like to just give a few examples of some of the early actions, early projects that enable the RER program to unfold. And I won't get into too much detail. We have a couple slides here on the environmental assessments. We have some completed already, and this is really good stuff. This enables us to hit the road really moving quickly. So for Stouffville corridor, we have an environmental assessment for additional track to Unionville and a Lincolnville layover expansion. For the Kitchener corridor.
So just help us what these mean.
Sure.
Once you've got an EA approved for an additional track to Unionville,
Yep.
and given you know you need more track to Unionville for any significant increase in service on Unionville, does that mean we can get going on building that additional track now, even as you're working on a range of other questions?
Yes, it does.
So you can get going.
We need to get going.
You can get going, if you will, once you've got the EA approval.
Yes, and this is a lot of work. So we need to get started now. We've got the signal system already in place. We've been doing that over the last 2-3 years. That next step is to get going on the track, and that's a multi-year project.
So
the
even
sooner we
as
start,
you're
the better.
continuing to develop the detailed plans, corridor by corridor, you can get cracking where you already have EA approval.
Correct.
And where you know, no matter how it turns out in the detail, you need an extra track, you can get going on track?
Yes.
That's a fair way of putting it?
Absolutely.
Even though you might be 6 months or a year away from finalizing the details of the service and all the consultations, et cetera, in terms of where you know with certainty you need more track, you can start building track?
Yes, to enable us to deliver on a 10-year program that's as aggressive as this, we have to start now. And that means putting those contracts out. These are large contracts, multi-year delivery. They have to start right now. Wherever we can, we need to do concurrent work with concurrent approvals. We can't do work sequentially, and this is one of the things that was a quick thing to understand early in. There were about 5 key major enablers, one of which is get started now. So that's what you'll see here.
Got it.
Lakeshore West, we're we're taking, we've already got the environmental assessment to expand beyond Hamilton Junction on the CN corridor. It's very complicated track there, and we're already doing some work to get started to turn the corner, if you will, on Lake Ontario and enable additional track capacity into our new James North Station. Barrie, the Barrie corridor, we've already got the EA sign off to add more track on that corridor as well. We already got probably 2/3 of the signal system in place, so we can start the track program, even concurrent with the signal program. All of this is while we keep service alive. So that's really the challenge, is we are growing the business, we're not reducing train service, and we're doing this significant infrastructure build program concurrently. This last slide, and thanks for your patience, we're almost done. So here's some of the stuff that's coming at us quickly. We're taking a network approach as to what we need to do for grade separations. Each grade separation does need an EA, so instead of doing them one at a time, we're looking at various options to bundle grade separations. We bundle them by corridor. Again, before we advance the packaging of the work, we have to look at what impacts multiple grade separations built concurrently has on service delivery. So that is moving forward in terms of understanding and study. On the Lakeshore East, we already have an environmental assessment being scoped out in terms of additional track between Union Station and Pickering. And also on Lakeshore West, we're looking at additional track. So I won't go through all of these, but what I think the takeaway from this slide is that we're doing a lot now. And as we're doing this, we're also planning next phases, and then we'll add those in. And where we can, we'll even do those concurrently. This is like a full SWAT approach in terms of getting as much work done and as much work started as we can.
So these are EAs you're about to launch?
Yeah.
All these bullet points?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about expansion, of course.
Right.
I'd like to talk briefly about some of the electrification work we're doing. We're taking a system-wide look at electrification. As we already talked about, we do have an approved EA, one of two. We need to make sure we can electrify the up service from Pearson to Union Station. We're also working closely with the regulators to see how we can do the EA process with them faster. Metrolinx and Hydro One frankly provide most of the EA requests of the Ministry of Environment, so by working with Hydro One to streamline the process makes a lot of sense for both of us.
And do we have Hydro One approval? Does Hydro One have approval yet for the electrification of the Up Express?
No, they're still waiting for that. That's a full class EA, and that takes longer. So best we can tell at this point is we're going to hear by mid-15 on that piece. They're trying to move it faster.
As Hydro One will hear.
Yes, and us through them.
Another 6 months.
Worst case is what we're hearing. But it's being pushed as fast as it can go, is what we're also being told. So we'd like to see that move faster so that then you have the two that you need to move ahead.
And give us a flavor, just one or two examples of the sort of issues that Hydro One is wrestling with that would cause it to take so much more time than our process took getting our piece of it done.
Sure. Hydro One is looking at the heavy electrical infrastructure requirement, location of transformers, various station infrastructure they need to distribute the electrical requirement for up and other grid requirements. So theirs is a different order of need from ours, but ours is buried into theirs. So that's the kind of thing they're looking at. So it is different.
They're not looking just how to electrify the Up Express. They're looking at their power requirements and distribution.
That's correct.
In this geography for many purposes.
Yes, because I mean they look on a system base. They're actually quite like us in that respect. They look at a system need, and Up Express is a piece of that. So that's what they've gone to MOE with.
Got it. Sorry, Bonnie.
Just a quick question. What's an average length of time to complete an EA?
There's different types of EAs.
Right. I look across the 7, and they look very different one to the next.
Right. We have a transit EA that moves quite quickly. It's basically a 6-month process, and that's how we were able to get ours approved faster. We got ours approved in June. A Class EA implies a lot more public consultation, which takes more time. It's a more fulsome review. And there's different ways that it can bump up into even a more fulsome review. So you don't know where that may happen. So
That can take 1, 2, 3 years,
it can take much longer.
where we have this statutory truncated process that in principle delivers a result within 6 months of firing the starter's gun. Once you're ready to go, there's a process of getting ready to do an EA, but once you start, we have a 6-month process. That's only for transit. Am I right? That's only transit, Bruce?
That's correct. So we have, it requires the owner to do all their homework in advance in terms of all the technical analysis. But once they feel that they have the complete package ready to go, then they can make that submission, and there's a 6-month clock that starts ticking from that point, but that only applies to transit projects.
So when we were doing our EA, let's say for electrification, for RER, do we break that into each corridor, or do we do one at a time, or?
We thought through that. We're doing a system approach. So system electrification, so our full network, excepting we've already done one piece, which is the up express.
Well, given the significant power requirements for that, and even the location in the transformer, particularly in the city, you could see that taking a long time.
Right, hence we've started it.
3 to 4 years?
Yeah.
I don't want to predict actually how long it's going to take. One of the conversations we're having with the province is whether or not we can integrate in the approvals for hydroelectric infrastructure that's needed for transit as part of the 6-month process for the transit. So hopefully we won't then have this in parallel process, but we can have one integrated process.
And they can do that within the context of the Act now?
They'll have to pass, I believe, a regulation in order to make that happen.
So as far as electrification, we continue to narrow down the corridor-specific infrastructure we need to support electrification. We have to be aware of electrification, how you sequence work on heavy rail infrastructure from electrified infrastructure, setbacks. It's very intricate to plan how you do a given corridor and what work you sequence first. So that all of that thinking is happening as we speak. We are going out to look for support for our budding electrification team, which is all of one person at this point with support from others. So we need to obviously grow our IQ on electrification, and we'll be reaching to the market to be able to do that. I think that's as far as we'll go on electrification early actions. 2 slides left. I'd like to just touch on some of the early things we've done on infrastructure. We continue to work aggressively on our Union Station revitalization program. We will be a construction site in Union Station for a couple more years. And there's work being done outside for its TTC second platform. There's lots of work going on at Union Station. It is moving ahead in a coordinated fashion. Our East Rail maintenance facility, we expect to see an award early in 2015 and construction to get going, with an expected go live in late 2017, early 2018. Our signal system contract for Union Station was awarded to a consortia. That is moving, and the construction will start in 2015. We're well into design, and that will be completed sometime in 2019. We are still using the enhancements to the original signal system that was built in 1931. And guess what? It works. But we can't take that risk, and we have to make that a modern signal system that gives us a whole lot more speed and flexibility. In terms of Barrie, we've talked about the additional track program at Yorkview and Southern Rutherford, and we are working on the Shirley Road layover, which is an expansion of our current layover capability in Kitchener to enable additional trains to start up in late 2016. So that'll double our train service into Kitchener from today. So that's underway as well. In terms of, this is our last slide, in terms of next steps.
You said that a few times.
I said almost last slide.
They're all good. They're all very good, no, Greg.
We continue to refine the service concept. We make sure that it's iterative with the infrastructure plan, the phasing plan. In terms of the SmartTrack integration, we have that committee. Leslie's our lead on that. That's moving forward. we will ensure that it is hand in glove with the RER program work. That's why Leslie's on both programs and others will be too. Engagement with the region and municipalities, local transit, and the many other community stakeholders is coming really soon. We're targeting hopefully first quarter 15, but we want to make sure we get it right before we take it out to show people. The early actions, we have a lot of concurrent work going on, initiatives to inform the RER process. We have not talked about them today. There's at least 30 separate initiatives of different scales that are going on concurrently that will enable us to better refine our RER program and rollout. And lastly, we will come back again to this board at our next meeting, which I believe is in February, with a further update and more good news to share. That's all.
That was very comprehensive, Greg. Thank you, and actually remarkably clear given the complexity of it. Congratulations on the presentation. The floor is now open to questions from any member of the board. Are you all completely appreciative and understanding and clear? And
well, I would just say for the benefit of those present that the board has had an opportunity to have an in-depth review in an additional meeting to go through it all, so and to understand the progress that you're making on the business case analysis, and you know, it's a huge amount of work that has to be done, and so I don't want the lack of questions to be interpreted as you know, that we're not following it. It's just that we've had a chance to go through it in depth.
Douglas.
Can I just add to Ann's comment? You know, I think that it's really important that Ontarians understand how big this is and how complicated it is. You know, when I've looked at the decks in some of our presentation materials to the board, I'm just blown away by the magnitude of this commitment. And it's easy to make a political commitment. It's easy to make a headline commitment. But boy, the technical challenges of turning that into something when you're operating a big railroad already in the busiest part of the country is profound. And so, you know, I think that this company and this board and the ministry and the City of Toronto have to really make sure Ontarians understand what it is we've bitten off here, and that this just isn't a soundbite. This is really complicated work, and so that would just be a comment I'd make.
Thanks, Doug. Greg, apart from paying for all this, which is obviously a non-trivial issue, it's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of work. What are the things that are going to be hardest to get done out of this? When you think about executing on this, you've staked your reputation, our reputation collectively on delivering this program over 10 years. What are the pieces of execution as opposed to analysis? This analysis is terrific, but it's all, the proof's going to be in the delivery and the execution. What are the pieces that we should worry most about? Is it the grade separations? Is it getting the electrification together? Is it the equipment? What is it? The signals? What are the things that make you least confident? You're very confident in your team. You got a great track record. There's great planning. That's the confidence part. Where's your lesser levels of confidence lie?
I think our confidence is pretty strong, but I think our challenges, the bigger challenges that we will take head on are how do you deliver this scale of work while still growing your current business? And we've proven we can do that to this point. We've done the Georgetown South program, which is $1.5 billion work in 5 years, with minimal impact on train service. In fact, growing the business. But this scale of work will dwarf that energy and effort and investment that we've done already. So it's making sure that we don't overly focus on one to the detriment of the other, that we balance those and move them forward together. The other piece is that life would be much simpler if we were the only rail service on any given corridor. We're not. We are a shared corridor. We share our corridors with freight and with intercity passenger via. So a conversation with those major stakeholders is important, and to see where that conversation can go, and to to do this kind of program without some fairly dramatic changes in the profile of rail in the GTHA will make it more challenging than it would otherwise be if we did some other things. So I'm being a bit vague because we have some conversations coming up, but I think engaging them early and seriously is really important as to what is our vision for the rail map in the GTHA looking out 20 and 30 and 50 years, because those decisions impact on our actions now. So that is another thing. It doesn't keep me up at night, but I think it's something that's a real game changer for what is already a game-changing program.
That's helpful. Let me go back to the first of those two, just to make sure I understood the point. Your life would be easier in terms of doing the construction if we stopped growing service for the next 10 years and then opened up that new construction with high levels of service. But instead, your plan is to keep increasing service levels, even knowing that means you've got fewer hours on the tracks when there are no trains going by. So you got smaller windows to work, if I can put it simply. Is that what you're saying? And it's a trade-off between those two?
It's kind of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we're not for 1 second thinking of flattening our train service today. Our intention is to do everything, to grow the business at the same time as taking this work on and delivering it. What that means, though, is you have to do it differently. It means that you work in tighter windows, which then costs you more money. It means you do a lot of work at night that we might not otherwise have done, and not everybody prefers to do. And you have to pay premiums for that kind of shift work. So doing things different are really important to delivering this scale of work without compromising on the integrity of our service today and our ability to grow the business tomorrow.
So you'll keep adding trains, adding service, even as you're embarking on...
Yes, but we're going to do it very selectively. So, for example, where we can, and what we did do on Georgetown South, to create a wider midday window, we suspended train service and added a whole pile of bus service through a narrow origin destination. So that created a larger work window, enabled the work to be done faster and less expensively. So this all done using a surgeon's scalpel, not an axe. So we will look at every opportunity and say, how can we be street smart in doing that piece of work without compromising service? And service for GO Transit is a sum of rail and bus. So where we can selectively insert bus service to change the rail service, we will do that because we've proven that it actually can work.
Howard?
So that's a great presentation. If we were to just look at results, expectations, and you're rolling out over 10 years, how would you describe the incremental increase in the first, say, 5 years? Is it front-end loaded? Is it back-end loaded? Where will you see the greatest jump in achieving the goals you want at the 7-year mark, at the 5-year mark?
Sure. So our commitment to the province is that we will deliver a work stream through the 10 years. So the entire period, we will deliver outcomes that are important. In terms of the actual cash flow spend, based on the critical mass of work we've already done, we know that it's mid and back end loaded, because at the front end you're doing your environmental assessments, your designs. But because it's a portfolio of work, if you will, we're able to do both at the same time. So whereas the front end there'll be a little more on the EA design, but we're also constructing, right? Towards the end, you're already past the design and approval stage, and you're full bore on construction. So the cash flow will reflect that behavior. So I think to answer your question, you're going to see more construction work in sort of the 5 to 10 year period. But we have assured the province, and we will assure the board, you will see deliveries done, completed projects through the whole 10-year period.
Okay.
Rahul, I think you were next.
Sure, just a comment. I mean, sometimes we don't celebrate the things that we do well enough. And I think this is a case in point that, when I put this in the context of the conversations we were having 6-7 years ago around the big vision of the big move and how RER emerged as sort of the skeleton of that, and a very important piece of architecture and all of that, and how we started to bring in the notion of how do we grow that out and build out our customer service and our stakeholder engagement. And those were very early conversations, big picture vision conversations that I think have started to really get some meat on the bones on this, and they're really starting to make some progress. And when I see where we are now and I see how far we've come, you know, I'm feeling very optimistic. I'm also daunted about how far we have to go and what that's going to cost to get there. That's still a big issue. But I still think we've made some extraordinary steps in that regard, and I think you and your team have done just a great job at doing that. Every once in a while, it's worth reminding ourselves just how far down the journey we have gone.
Nicely said. Nicely said. This is really impressive what you've got on. Bonnie?
Just a question. The Joint Program Committee that you talked about, which is a new entity, we know there's a huge amount of alignment, convergence, whatever language you want to use around SmartTrack and our ongoing plans. But there are a number of areas that are quite different. Is that the starting place for the conversations about the areas that are different, or is that Joint Program Committee one looking at the convergence components?
I think it has to look at both. You know, if I was to be very simplistic about this, if there are 100 points of convergence, there is a very small handful of areas where we need to drill down and find how we link together the SmartTrack with the Regional Express Rail concepts. We do need to do both, and the discussion that we've been having with the city to date at all levels, you know, it's at the city manager level, it's with the transition team in the past few weeks, it's with the staff at the deputy city manager level, the director level. It's all been very much how do we work together to try to achieve a joint program, joint advice to both city council as well as to this board and to the province. So that is really the focus of what we're trying to move forward with, is that there's going to be a shared recommendation that comes forward in terms of how to deliver on the promise of Regional Express Rail, with SmartTrack as being a key element of that program.
All right.
Thank you very much, Greg. We're 5 minutes over time, so I think we are 4 minutes over. I think we should move ahead, but that you and your team, and Mike, your whole group, everybody, that's really good work. Impressive and coming along nicely. That brings us to the Customer Service Committee Chair's report. This is your swan song, Richard. This is your finale. This is your last chance.
It is.
Take a shot.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for your leadership.
And I am doing this on behalf of our chair, Nick Mutton, who was unable to join us today. But I also want to acknowledge.
Speak up a bit.
I also want to acknowledge Nick's leadership in working in this committee. We've seen some terrific work over the last while. I'll touch on some of it. I also want to thank my colleagues, Joe and Doug, who are exiting with me at the same time, as their participation in this committee has made a huge difference going forward. So let me just touch on some of the activities that we've been up to and some of the information we've been reviewing as part of our role. First off is the report that I provided actually as chair of the GOES Customer Service Advisory Committee. Again, reminding you that this is a committee of actual users in the GO network who come together on a regular basis to provide some feedback to our team in terms of their experience, and also identifying things that they see within the network. And some of you, if you had a chance to look through some of the detail in the package, especially the log, you'll see hundreds, literally hundreds of ideas and suggestions and issues that they have brought up that the team here has actually addressed and solved. So it's making a big difference in terms of customer service. We talked a little bit about GO's role in providing transportation services during the Pan Am and Parapan Am Games. We had an update on revitalization of Union Station and improvements to signage and service counters and information on the future of digital signage at GO stations and bus terminals. So you'll see some big changes happening for those of you who are riding on the system on a regular basis. We also received an update on Presto, and particularly its launch with the TTC. You've probably read about it in the media, and that seems to be moving along very nicely, and it will continue to grow as the TTC brings on new cars. As well, the support of TTC Presto has included the launch of a new website designed for TTC users, Station Presto ambassadors at selected locations to actually help the customers in terms of using the systems, and made Presto cards available for purchase at TTC MetroPass vending machines. We talked a little bit about the update on Pan Am, Parapan Am Games. Again, you'll hear more about that as we get closer to the games, but I can assure you that both the team here and the committee itself is spending time on this one. We all are looking forward to a great games. On item 4 then is the Go customer service accomplishments. And I really want to point out the amazing effort that's being put forward by our team. The overall satisfaction rating has broken through all ceilings that we have placed before it, reaching 84%, along with 84% of Go customers saying they would recommend the service to others. This is amazing work, considering we were down in the low 50s back at the beginning of Metrolinx. Some terrific progress in terms of customer service satisfaction. In the last quarter, in terms of some of the accomplishments, we've added additional service, 7 locomotives, 22 coaches to increase rail capacity. We all know that more capacity gets eaten up as soon as we put it on, and that's why it's important to continue to grow. Completing renovations at Ajax, Appleby, and Maple stations. Launching the first Go Transit mobile website to keep customers in the know. Starting automatic announcements on Go buses to keep customers in the know. So this is, again, another first, but a way to keep the customers engaged. And providing Presto how-to videos to help customers start using their Presto cards. For those of us who haven't got one, you should get one, and this is a way to learn how to use it. And launching a Go transit trip planner before the end of January. This is a really big step forward, this regional planner, particularly for our advisor group and the users. This has been one of their top priorities, and we'll be now launching that in January. So we're really looking forward to that. And finally, an update on Up Express. And I know Kathy Haley's going to be talking a little bit more about that later, but I want to assure the rest of the board that you know that we're spending a lot of time on Up Express and the launch of Up and the work that it'll be doing. So that concludes my...
Thank you very much, Richard. Questions to Richard. I have one. Oh, Stephen, you go first.
How does the Go Transit Trip Advisor work?
Well, today there isn't really a system because of the diverse nature of all of the different transit systems where somebody, if you're in Ajax, want to go to Hamilton, for example, to be able to actually plan that out. So this allows you then to be able to go online and say, I'm leaving from this point in Ajax and want to go to this point in Hamilton, and it'll give you all the routing and plan the trip out for you.
Is that integrated with the local transit authorities?
Yes.
Too?
Yeah. So they're participating in that process. So it's quite an exercise because you're bringing all of the transit authorities together.
So it's an online type of application.
Correct.
Just go on, click in.
Yeah.
Great.
Who do we report to on Pan Am Games? We're not in charge of that, right? We're just one of the providers. Excuse me for that. One of the providers to somebody else who must be in charge, or maybe my question's through you to Bruce as to how this works.
Yeah.
So
maybe Bruce can give you more detail, but there's actually going to be a command center, if I can call it that, will actually manage all this with all the parties participating. So maybe Bruce, you can give them a little more detail on that.
So the coordinating committee for Pan Am, of course, has overall carriage of the delivery of the program for Pan Am. For the transportation component, the Ministry of Transportation has taken responsibility of coordinating all the different transportation and transit authorities. So they're basically being command central in terms of the program, the plan, making sure that whether it's ourselves or the TTC, road authorities or transit authorities, that we're all doing our elements. Our 4 key contributions are all on track. Those include the travel planner that was referred to earlier on, of course, Union Pearson Express, rail and bus services as we deliver the service to both spectators as well as our regular customer base during the games itself. So we're actually tracking quite well. And the 4th element I should also mention is the James North Station in Hamilton, which is a key deliverable for the games. But the overall carriage and responsibility for the transportation element is being coordinated through the Ministry of Transportation.
So I'm going to go to Joe in a second, just if I can do a follow-up question. From the point of view of our current customers, it sounds like there's no compromise of what they receive even through the period of the games, but we're getting a bunch of stuff done which will enhance our services, enhance service. Is that right? Or is there a trade-off during the period of the games between what we do for our regular customers and what we do for the special influx?
Yeah, our objective is to make sure that we can continue to deliver services to the hundreds of thousands of people who rely on GO services every day. But we're also providing the services for the spectators in particular for the games. We are not responsible for delivering athletes, for example, or officials or the game's family to their events. That's being taken care of through other means. But we are responsible for delivering spectators. The good thing from our perspective is when we look at the major venues in downtown Toronto, the new facility in Hamilton, other locations, many of them are coterminous with some of our existing services. We are making adjustments to make sure that where we need more service for particular events and venues, then that will be provided. So for example, for James North, our plan is, of course, to launch our peak period service at this coming summer. But we're also negotiating with CN, who's the track owner, about how we can provide special event service to deal with a soccer venue in particular.
Thank you. Joe, you're on the board of Pan Am Games, is that right?
I am indeed, sir.
So why don't you intervene?
And not only that, I just wanted to bring to the attention of our colleagues here that there was a terrific presentation made yesterday to the Customer Service Committee. And I would strongly recommend that this board get that same recommendation. In fact, I suggested that that presentation should also go to the 2015 Pan Am board, because it's I mean, I've been involved with this for about 4 years, and it's the first actual presentation I've seen that makes sense to me, that shows how the integration between transit and facilities and movement of not just people, athletes, officials, how it all comes together, and where the control, the correction measures, all of these things, how it works. And I think if we could see that presentation, hear that presentation at this board, the next meeting, there's no hurry for it, but it would be good because it clarifies things in a way that I've not seen before.
Thank you very much, and we should try and do that in a public session, Bruce, so that we share the learning. I think we should push ahead. The next item on the agenda, we're just running 2 or 3 minutes behind, but pretty good shape, is the Up Express update. Kathy Haley. Kathy, you've got an update for us, but you've also got a fair recommendation for us, and I want to make sure we spend enough time on the fair recommendation and provide an opportunity for any questions. We have a number of visitors who are interested in the topic, so over to you.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'm joined by my colleague, Stefan Mayer, who's my Director of Business Planning, for those that don't know him. And I'd just like to thank the board for your counsel and advice over the last couple of years. We've had lots of discussions on the business model, and it's a much anticipated topic that we bring forward for the recommendation today. Before I do so, I'd just like to touch briefly on the progress that we've made on Up Express. It's hard to believe, but in a few short months, we will be up and operating for revenue service in time for the Pan Am Paralympic Games. And
what does that mean? Everybody keeps asking me, everywhere I go, when's the service starting? And I say, I think it's sometime this late spring or something, but when are the games, and what's the latest you can start? When will we know when the service starts?
So the games start in July, so we'll be up and operating in late spring. In time.
When does summer doesn't start till June 22nd or something?
So you can expect when the flowers are blooming, we will be up and operating.
So sometime before June 21st?
And don't have a date? A specific date yet?
We're still working on the date because we have to work through all of the detailed integrated testing and commissioning before we officially announce that date.
But if I tell people they might get a ride in May, is that
a pretty
fair
safe
guess?
bet.
But make clear it's not certain, but is that a fair guess?
It's a pretty safe bet.
Okay.
As many of you know, we've been talking about this for years, so to see this vision come to life is pretty exciting for all of us, and believe it every day is a reality. So we will be connecting Canada's 2 busiest transportation hubs, Union Station, Canada's busiest hub in downtown Toronto, to Toronto Pearson International Airport, so almost 40 million passengers a year. And it's amazing to see the acceleration that will take place in passenger growth in both of those hubs, which will really heighten the demand for the air rail service and further substantiate the importance of this connection. So what value will this service provide? And I'd like to summarize this really in 3 primary areas. The first thing is that it is going to be fast, only 25 minutes door to door. You know, people tell me all the time how frustrating it is just to deal with traffic when they're getting to and from the airport. It can take them 40, 50, 60 minutes, sometimes more than an hour. I've heard people say it can take 90 minutes. And of course, it depends on the weather, the construction, the time of day. But when you're trying to catch a flight, and I'm sure you've all been there, the aggravation of being stuck in traffic when you're trying to get to that flight is really stressful. So we believe that this direct, very predictable service will create a very stress-free choice for our travelers. And it will be reliable. We will be operating every 15 minutes for 19.5 hours a day, 365 days a year. So a very predictable service. In addition, we have created these services for air travelers. So we have lots of really good services for the air service, including check-in kiosks for airlines, so you can check in right at Union Station in downtown Toronto. We'll have flight information displays, so you can check to see if your flights are on time or delayed. We'll have uninterrupted Wi-Fi throughout the system. For those that are taking luggage, it will be easy to roll your luggage on and off through level boarding, and so on. So very exciting services for this offering. The route and vehicles, like most express air rail services, they are direct with as few stops as possible, and this will be the case for us. Our primary station is at Union Station with easy access to the TTC GO and Via Rail connections. And we will, of course, travel along the GO Kitchener corridor with 2 quick stops at Bloor Dundas and Weston GO stations. And then it will travel along an elevated 3-kilometer spur right into Terminal 1. And its highest point, it's 28 meters or 100 feet in the air, which will provide panoramic views of our beautiful city. Our stations, it's actually exciting to see the stations come to life. All 4 are almost fully constructed now, and we drew our design inspiration from the natural beauty of Ontario. So you'll see a similar symmetry across all of these stations and right through to our vehicles for the use of materials, lighting, and accessibility. Our flagship station in Union Station is 18,500 square feet on 2 levels, and it's perfectly located for us, right in the Skywalk area. So it's adjacent to the CN Tower, the Convention Center. We're perfectly located to the downtown hotels, including the new Delta Hotel that's opened with direct access into their lobby area, and obviously hotels and entertainment. So this will be a very impressive introduction into our great city. We've taken a look at international benchmarking, and I'm proud to say that the Union Pearson Express will reinforce Toronto's position as a world-class city. We will join the ranks of other cities that offer fast and seamless transitions from the airport to their downtown cores, like the Heathrow Express in London, the Arlanda Express in Stockholm, the Narita Express in Tokyo. These are dedicated express services for air travelers, and that's really what we've modeled against. Toronto deserves an air rail service like this that's fast and direct. Like other world-class cities, Toronto will also have other options to get to the airport. Personal cars, taxis, town cars, GO Transit, and TTC will all continue to play a vital role in getting people to and from Toronto Pearson. Prices and times will vary, of course, depending upon your mode of transportation. We know taxis and limos can cost anywhere between $60 and $70. Plus tip oftentimes, and it will take 40 to 60 minutes, sometimes more, to get to the airport. The GO TTC, if you take the TTC with the airport rocket, that can take you 80, 90 minutes to get there at a obviously reasonable $3 charge. So there's lots of different options, and we will be offering just one more choice to get to the airport. We've also undergone extensive ridership forecasts to take a look at demand, and there's high demand for this service and support for it. Of the 40 million passengers that travel through the airport each year, we expect that about 12 million live in the catchment area, and we hope to capture between 20 and 25% of that market. So by 2020, we're expecting 2.5 million passengers, and that's a good market share and a reliable business model. We expect 40% of our passengers will be local users and 60% will be from outside of the GTA. So they'll come from other parts of Canada, the United States, and international markets. And we've taken that into account for our modeling. Now, while research and ridership have played a critical role, we were also guided by 5 primary principles for our fare recommendation. First, We wanted a fare structure that builds ridership. It's fundamental. After all, we want to make this a success, and so building ridership is a priority for us. 2, we want to take cars off the road, and so Up Express needs to be priced to encourage people to take the comfort of rail instead of the stress of the road. 3, we are committed to variable fare products for children, students, seniors, family, and frequent users like airport travelers. 4, fare by distance. It seems reasonable that passengers would pay fare by distance based on the station that they are traveling to and from. And 5, ultimately, we need a plan that will enable us to be self-sustaining. There are a number of factors in play here.
Kathy, I think you misstated on your third one. You said, and frequent users like airport travelers. I think you meant to say airport employees.
Airport employees, sorry. Thank you for that.
The slide says airport employees, but
Thank you
your
for
words
that
were
catch,
airport
Mr. Chair.
travelers.
My apologies. And we expect that there will be a ramp-up period of 1 to 2 to 3 years where the ridership will actually reach maturity. And the other thing that we've taken into account in our recovery of operating costs is that we are starting to work with business partnership opportunities to enhance the customer experience and start to take a look at independent revenue streams. So with all of those factors in play, our principles, our research, our ridership forecast, and sensitive to the consultations and advice that we have received from various stakeholders, here are our recommendations. We are recommending a $19 fare with a Presto card from traffic from Union to Pearson Station. We think that's reasonable. The price is about 1/3 the cost of a taxi and $10 less than the Airport Express bus that previously provided service from downtown Toronto. For those that don't have a Presto card, the price will be $27.50. This is lower than the originally anticipated price, and we have thanks to the Greater Toronto Airports Authority, as there will be no charge for an access fee into the airport. The Greater Toronto Airport Authority is working with Metrolinx to promote Up as a seamless service for travelers coming to and from the airport, and we are grateful to them for their strong and ongoing partnership. There will be a range for students, children, and families, various discounts. So for seniors and students, the price will be only $16.15 for a Presto card. Children under 12, $9.50, and all children under 6 will travel for free. For families, we have a great package too. $55 fare package for 2 adults and 3 children under 18. You can get from Union Station to Pearson, $44 from Bloor, and $33 from Weston. So on balance, we think we have prices that are reasonable and fair. For airport employees, we've taken a strong look at airport employees as we think they have a special demographic. They travel back and forth to the airport for work every day. And based on research that we've done internationally, we know that there's precedent for offering discounts for airport workers. We took a look at that, and we think that's a principle that we can embrace. We've conducted detailed research with airport workers, and we've met with them again as recently as last week to discuss their input and involvement. And as a result of all of these factors, we are recommending a deep discount for airport employees. The price for airport workers will be $10 with a flat rate to and from all stations. And there's more. With a monthly pass of $300, the average price will be $7.50. Even less if they take more than 40 rides a month. We want the Up Express service to be one that airport workers love to use and proudly recommend to their passengers.
I think just on that, with the monthly, assuming that qualifies for Canada Revenue tax credit, am I right that means it's approximately $650, not $750 net cost to the employee?
That's correct. We believe that it will benefit from the CRA tax
And the
credit.
effect of that is about a reduction of $1, $1.50?
That's about right, about $1.
Thanks.
We've taken a look at the fare by distance. So with a Presto card from Bloor, it'll be $15.20, and from Weston, $11.40. We have the proposed fare table on our website, so you can go to www.upexpress.com for further information to see our full suite of products on the website. So in summary, Mr. Chair, I'm proud to say that we are on budget and on track to deliver the service this coming spring, And as for the business model, I think we have a balanced approach. I think we have one that really will enhance ridership, will help to ensure self-financing, and to provide an excellent customer experience that is fast, reliable, and reasonably priced. So I open it up
Good job.
for questions.
Thank you very much. Last time we were here discussing this topic, a number of employees from the airport approached me, and they said they'd like us to come to the airport and listen to them. I promised you would. Have you done that? What did you hear? Did it influence what you recommended?
Yes, we have had the opportunity to meet with them just over a week ago now. Bruce and I were there. We were very interested in listening to their concerns and what they had to say. And we definitely took that into consideration for the recommendations that you're seeing here this morning.
And the advice you got from them?
We heard advice about wanting this to be first of all, they wanted consultation. They wanted the opportunity to input to this. We think that's an important thing to do. What they might not know is that probably over the last couple of years, we've undergone extensive quantitative research with airport employees, with residents in the community, to ask them about the receptivity for different fares and different structures. And then they asked about specifically services for the airport workers, the amount of time that they go to the airport, and the interest in having deeper discounts for airport employees. And based on precedents around the world and what we've seen in other jurisdictions, we think that responding to that request is fair and reasonable.
Thank you very much. The floor is open for questions, comments, concerns. We've heard about this before a number of times, and you've brought it together for us and got a recommendation. Other questions? Rahul?
Forgive me, Kathy. I think I'm going to direct this one to Bruce, actually. And it relates to a CBC Metro Morning interview. And I know you've been speaking to Metro Morning over the last couple of days as well, but there was a gentleman on this morning who actually made a really persuasive case from his own perspective, and it was one person's perspective on how this was all playing off. And I couldn't help but be somewhat sympathetic to his view. As an employee of the airport, I believe, and his view on the rates and all. And I also recognized that it was a very specific point of view that didn't really have, in my view at least, since we've got the benefit of all the other perspectives and the things that we've got to balance out, that he didn't have the fullest picture. Well, I got to say, he was very articulate, really reasoned, and I thought, boy, he really made a good case from his point of view. How would you respond to that? I know you heard a little bit of that interview this morning as well.
Yeah, so first of all, I appreciate the fact that the airport employees have spent the time and energy to make their concerns known to us, and appreciated the input that we did receive from them over the course of the meetings in the past week. I guess I would say a few things. First of all, when we looked at the Union Pearson Express, we looked at it as a dedicated air rail link, a kind of service that we don't currently have in the city, and frankly we don't really have in this continent at this point. There's lots of precedents in Europe and Asia, but this is the first time we have this kind of a dedicated service here in the North American marketplace. And it's not really intended to be a commuter service. Those commuter services are intended to be provided by services like Go Transit and the TTC, and we are expanding those services both into the airport as well as into the downtown area. But we understand that the airport employees have a particular need because they are, the one group of employees that are going into the airport on a daily basis. We felt it was reasonable to look at a deep discount, recognizing that it would make they become also our ambassadors for the service as we go forward as well. So we've tried to take a very careful look at the concerns and issues. The recommendation is that we have a deep discount for the airport employees, and we believe that when you think about the cost of that in comparison to other services that this corporation offers. So for example, our customers who are coming in from Oakville on the GO system right now are paying about the same level. We feel that this is a reasonable amount for a daily commute into Pearson Airport.
So Bruce, just to follow that up, if you just charge this, and I'm not recommending you do it, if you were only charging the regular GO fare by distance coming on this line, would this be, what, a $6 fare from the airport, $7 fare, $5 fare? What sort of fare would, if it was just our normal pricing regime, not this premium service, and da-da-da-da?
So when we look at our fare by distance model, this would probably land in the realm for a GO service between $5.50 and $7 in terms of the fare. We have a very frequent level of service. We have a very specialized target in terms of providing the kinds of amenities that are needed for the airline traveler, whether it's luggage, whether it's the Wi-Fi, whether it's the check-in counters in the stations. So there are all these other elements that we think are really important that we need to be considering.
I guess I'm asking a question that way with a point to see if it's right, that for airport employees, their after-tax cost of about $6.50 is not dissimilar from how we treat commuters across the whole system. So you're treating them, in effect, as go commuters, even though everybody else has been treated the $19 fare.
Yes.
Is that a fair description?
With the discount, with the monthly pass, assuming it is accepted by the Canada Revenue Agency as a tax deduction, then yes, the fare, the daily fare would be basically consistent with the kinds of fares that we charge our GO customers.
And Kathy, I think you told me that if you think about the alternative being driving, as opposed to the alternative being taking the other services you referred to, that the cost that airport employees get a discount on their parking, I believe, to $105 or something a month, made me want to be an airport employee at $105 a month. But that the estimated cost of someone who runs a car out there and back 20 days a month plus the parking is about $500 a month?
That's correct.
Is that number right?
That's correct. And that does not include their other car costs for monthly payments, insurance, and whatnot. And I think that's pretty significant because based on our research, there's about 67% of the airport employees
67%
that drive to work, that use vehicles to drive to work. So we think this would be a significant savings for them.
So this is at $250 or $300 net, $250 net, $300 versus that $500 a month, which should be attractive.
Should be attractive.
Relative to the driver, not relative to the $3 on the TTC.
That's correct. On the other hand, it'll be significant time saving.
Right.
And a very good price for them as well.
Right. Janet.
One of the other issues that sometimes comes up on things like this is how much should be subsidized by the general taxpayer versus how much should be user pay. So in this circumstance, it looks like where the recommendation is taking us a little more into the user pay as opposed to general subsidization by any taxpayer, whether they use it or not.
Yeah, so that's very correct. And one of our principles is that we want to recover our day-to-day operating costs within 3 to 5 years. And when we think about the focus of the service to carry people who are going on vacation, for example, to the airport, having them pay the full operating cost of that kind of service seems reasonable. But then when we juxtapose that against the airport employees, I think that becomes the foundation for a discount to something that's more like a transit fare.
What is the cost, the operating cost then per rider, to give us context? And that is it at $27.50, will we be recovering our operating costs in the first year?
So the modeling that we've done is with the ramp-up period of traffic, that we start with about 1 million passengers in year 1, growing to about 2.5 million passengers by year 3. By year 3, with the mix of fare products that we're offering, with the forecasted ridership, that we anticipate that we will be basically recovering our day-to-day operating costs. So that's the objective of the model that we've developed.
So, but initially, in the first and the second and third year, the taxpayer will be subsidizing.
Yes, like any new service, there's a startup period where we need to introduce the public to the service, get them to see the value proposition, and we would expect, like any new product offering, that it will take us about 2 years, 3 years to get to the point of maturity where we would be at the level that we're recovering our operating costs. Now, as I said before, this is an entirely new kind of market offering here in Toronto and in North America. So we're going to be watching very carefully how it gets responded to as we introduce it, and we'll be reporting back as to what the ridership is, what's the revenue as we progress with the implementation.
Yeah, and Kathy, I assume you'll be doing lots of surveys on the split of between business and personal and employees, and to get a sense when you come back to report on this.
Absolutely, we'll be monitoring this very closely.
Janet had a supplementary, and then Ann.
Just one other comment in support of the proposal that's actually before us is that coming from the East GTA as I do, this is going to be a substantial savings and convenience for coming, like if you're, on that GO line or just north of that GO line, I mean, trying to take a limo or a taxi or taking the time and the hassle to try and get down to go and go out through the subway and TTC is just like a zoo. And taking your own car costs a fortune out there too. So when you look at it from that particular population, this could be a real benefit for both in terms of price, convenience, and time.
So when you're going to the airport from Pickering, you'll take this?
Yeah, actually I would. I know my husband will.
Right,
for sure.
no, but as a general,
Yeah.
this would be.
Yeah, he certainly will. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Ann?
I have a comment, Chair, and a question. My comment is that I feel very, very good about this proposal and the rationale, and in particular about how far we've come from when it was first presented to the board, which didn't have quite the nuance and the variation, and how we have developed the segmentation and the rationale for each of the different groups. I just wanted to compliment you, Kathy. I think we've come a long way from when I first heard about it, and I also think the input of the board was helpful, so I feel very good about that.
And I appreciated the input from the board. Thank you, Anne.
But my question is, maybe a bit ironic, is it so good that the capacity, in terms of the percentage of the airport employees that will be interested in using this? I mean, a lot of them come from a part of the southern Ontario that's not convenient for them to take it. So I'm sure we've studied capacity. Mm-hmm. If the employees seize this opportunity and the $300 and with the tax benefit and everything else, it's obviously a good deal. And if we get the kind of ridership we expect, do we have the capacity? The other point I want to make on the comment, by the way, and just to build on Janet's point, is I do think, because we have the public here, that the public needs to understand that it's a really good thing, that the advantage of the higher rate for the occasional business traveler is it's a good thing that, as a public, we're not underwriting and subsidizing all of the costs for the occasional business rider. We obviously are subsidizing for a whole bunch of various groups that, for the obvious reasons. So I'm just comfortable with this all the way around. But in terms of capacity, are we running any risk?
Are we going to get a seat?
Yes, it's a very good question, and it's one thing that Steph and I speak about a lot and assess in our analytics. We're going to have to look at that very carefully. Because we have limited capacity. We have a 3-car consist, so we don't have, we can't put on additional cars,
Yeah.
We just limited it.
The station will only take 3
It'll only take
consists,
3
right?
at Terminal 1, so we have fixed capacity constraints.
I'm just asking, is it too good?
We'll have to watch it. With respect to the airport employees, there's 40,000 employees that work at the airport.
Yeah.
There's 3,500 that live in the catchment area. Based on the research that we've done, we think we'll probably get between 500 and 800 passengers a day.
And what's our capacity, say, in a day overall?
So we have, of the 18 vehicles, there's 173. So it's about a 9 million passenger capacity. Like over.
Yeah, but what's the daily capacity to compare your 800 employees?
We're expecting about 5,000 passengers a day.
Oh, so basically, they could all take advantage of it, and we'd still have room for 4,300 other people.
Right.
In the early days, we think there's sufficient capacity to handle everyone, and everyone will have a seat.
If we have a crowding problem, it's not going to be because of airport employees, because there aren't that many that live in the catchment.
That's the point I wanted to get at.
The crowding problem will come if at $19 it's so attractive, and then at all the occasional visitors at the $27.50. If that, it's possible in the mature state, we'll have a capacity issue. We don't think we'll have any capacity issue in year 1, year 2. It would only be once it reaches the mature state, and we can adjust if it's turning out to be a problem.
And also timing will affect it too of the day. It won't be the same all day. Yeah.
So, Marianne, you got the last question or comment.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. What happens when, I'm impressed by the payback that from 3 to 5 years we'll be in a position where we've paid back. What happens beyond then? In those type of situations, do you predict escalation, or is it sort of a hold, you're following the path of escalation, or?
Where'd you get the payback? I thought what was said was by year 3, we hope it will be break even in that year. but we're never going to try to recover the amount we're leaving on the table in year 1 and year 2 in the start. That's a public investment to get it up to maturity, not a recovery of that subsidy.
My second question then was the return fare. Is there a discount for return fare?
Yes.
Or is it single fare?
Yeah, we have $1 for return fare, then there's $2 off for return fare.
And there's a variety of other products that are being proposed and developed. One is a meter and greeter product, so that if you are going to the airport to meet a friend or relative flying in, then as long as you're coming back within a 3-hour window, it's basically a 50% discount as well. So there are different kinds of fare products. Again, going to the segmentation that Ann Golden mentioned, we're trying to be as nuanced as possible to make sure that we can attract various different kinds of markets.
Are there any more questions or comments anybody wants to make before I test the matter? Richard, since you're the airport expert, will you be prepared to move this as one of your final acts of public service?
It would be my pleasure.
Joseph, will you second the motion?
Absolutely.
Any further discussion? Those in favor, please indicate. Any opposed? I see none. Thank you very much. I do want to thank our visitors and the people who met with us at the airport and the people who came last time to talk to us about it. It made a real difference to our thinking, and we appreciate the input, even if we haven't landed exactly where some of those representations were. We landed in a different place because of the interaction and the advice, and we appreciate it. So thank you. Kathy, good job. Next is Jack Collins. Jack is going to give us an update on capital projects. Jack, you're making progress.
Thank you, Chair. Directors, progress, progress, progress is the theme of this presentation. I'll start with the Eglinton Crosstown project on the tunneling that we're doing.
Have to speak as loud as you can because a number of people are moving around the room, but I don't want you to wait.
All right. If you look at the slide here, you can see how we've divided the 10 kilometers of tunneling on the Eglinton into 2 construction packages. The first one in blue is roughly 6.25 kilometers long. It's twin tunnels. And the one in green is what we refer to as the East Tunnel segment, which is about 3.25 kilometers of twin tunnels. Right now, we have actually finished tunneling, both tunneling, up to Allen Road. So on that ES1, which is extraction shaft 1, we are on the west side of the Allen Road, and we will be in mid-January picking up the tunnel boring machine and moving it across the Spadina subway box, and then dropping it into what we're calling launch shaft 2. So all of the material coming out of the tunnels will be going out of launch shaft 2 in the future, and we'll be finishing off the tunnels from Black Creek over to Allen Road.
What's that going to do to my access to the Allen Expressway off Eglinton at that time?
The construction goes on all the time, so we're roughly running 20-hour days of tunneling, or 20-hour days, so 2 tunnelling shifts at 10 hours. So we keep access open. It's restricted, but the environmental document requires us to keep 1 lane open in each direction, and we are trying to achieve that. And we're trying to move pedestrians and bicycles and TTC buses in and out of that station. So it's probably not the best place to be launching tunnel machines, but we really have no choice.
In itself, that intersection itself, I share Rob's interest, isn't going to get much better.
It won't get much better, no. Not until we're finished tunneling in that area, and then we have to build a station, and so that will follow.
And I was feeling so good a minute ago.
Yes. All right, sorry about that. Just a picture of the tunnel boring machines. We will be breaking through, as I mentioned, in early March and working with the TTC. We have had a number of directors down into the tunnels for tours. You can see a few of them there, and they actually made it out, and they're still alive and at the table today. But they're actually witnessing the launch of a ring. Each ring is 1.5 meters wide. There's about 6 tunnel liners in a ring. So the contractor's actually had days where he's put 20 rings down. That's phenomenal progress, and they are on schedule and on budget. On the east tunnels...
a media tour as well? Have you done a media
Yes,
tour?
we have done a media tour a couple of months ago, and actually brought a number of the media outlets into the tunnel, and they've seen that as well. We also had the Minister of Transportation in for a tour recently as well. The East Tunnel Drive's not as far along. They actually are, in this slide here, constructing the launch shaft, which was part of their contract, and they'll be tunneling sometime mid next year and making their way towards Yonge. So everything converges in Yonge by around the end of 2016. Both tunnels will be complete. And we'll leave the machines there until the follow-on contractor comes, and then they'll pull it out when they start constructing the station. The AFP contract, this is the contract we're doing with Infrastructure Ontario. This will build the balance of the project. So 15 underground stations, 10 surface stations on the surface section of Eglinton Crosstown. It also includes a 30-year maintenance contract. So they will be responsible for maintaining the asset that gets built in a state of good repair for a period of 30 years. And that would be competitively bid by them as part of this. We are hoping to receive the technical submittals by the 2 qualified proponents at the end of January of next year. We get the financial submittals around mid-February, and we will start the evaluation of those proposals, and we hope to have back to this board and the Infrastructure Ontario board in May, mid-May to June timeframe, a recommendation on who gets the contract to get going on the rest of the construction of the Eglinton Crosstown. So a lot of great progress being made on that. It is probably one of the largest alternative finance and procurements that, well, it is the largest that IO has ever done, and it's probably one of the largest ones in Canada. Viva Next Rapidways, we're making tremendous progress here. The minister was out in the fall along with Bruce to open up and put into revenue service Highway 7 piece over by Warden. So roughly from 404 to Warden is now open. We have a total of 6 kilometers of rapidway in revenue service by the end of this year. That represents about 17% of the project is complete, and it's on track for opening up a segment almost every year. So if you look at this slide, the green section is open, so that's the 6 kilometers that I referred to. The next one to come at the end of 2015 is the one up in Newmarket, which we call the Davis Drive segment. And then following that is the segment that ties into the Toronto-Yonge subway extension, and then following that, the Yonge Street contract, which was awarded and is in final design now. These are design-build contracts. And then the last piece, we're in market right now with Infrastructure Ontario on the remainder of the Highway 7. It's shown in blue there. That would open in 2019, and we're hoping to receive those proposals from 3 qualified proponents around June of the next year. Shifting to GO, a lot of you have seen the...
Please, Joe.
Just before Jack shifts to GO, if ever anyone wants to see or understand BRT and how it works, I suggest that they take a look at the Highway 7 just completed piece. It's incredible. I live about 5 minutes from there, and I was a skeptic going into BRTs. I mean, I've said that before, just didn't think it was worth it. It cost a lot of money for bus service. Well, this is quite different. And I can just tell you that I've told others and the City of Toronto, they should really look at this. It is not a bad thing. It is separated, it's not Sinclair, separated from the main traffic. It works, and it's aesthetically pleasing. It's actually quite brilliant. So I suggest you use it as a selling piece to others if they're interested in BRT.
Thanks for that, Joe.
Right. Thank you.
Keep going, Jack.
So on GO, many of you have seen a tower crane that's been stuck in the middle of Union Station's roof, and we've torn half the roof off. This is a going, gone slide. So the roof is done, the crane has been taken down, and all the glass panels and steel supports that the crane was setting in place are now finished. The rest of the work that needs to be done is the balance of the roof, which is quite large. And the key thing that we really need to focus on now is the waterproofing on all the tracks. So all the waterproofing is deteriorated. It's part of the contract. We really need to take some of those tracks out of service and waterproof a membrane underneath those tracks and then put the tracks back in order to keep leaks getting down into the concourse areas. And we are always chasing leaks, and so it's really a function of the waterproofing under the trackway that has deteriorated that needs to be replaced.
Doug has a question for you, Jack.
Yes.
Jack, I think that looks fantastic. I walked by it last night, and it's just, I think it is such a great piece of architecture and a great accomplishment to do it while the station's going full bore. Question, will the actual roof tops over top of each of the train tracks running east and west, are those also part of the project?
The actual roof.
The white stuff.
The white bits, yes.
So what you see there are plywood. We actually, when we got into the roof, it's again controlled by Parks Canada since this is a heritage building. The old roof was just rotten, dry rot, and so we actually had to pull all of the roof off and put these plywood panels that has blue skin on it just to keep the water off the plywood. Blue skin is just a material that makes it waterproof. So it's sitting like that now until we do the rest of the roof work here. But we're kind of rethinking that now. If we get into electrification, we may not want to advance too much of the roof work right now because we may need to redo the roof, and we're not wanting to spend a whole bunch of money if we're going to tear it out in a few years. So I think we're rethinking that as part of the RER and the electrification program right now.
Thank you.
So you've got a hold on moving forward with the rest of the roof?
Right now,
figuring out the electrification?
That's correct. That's correct. And we'll have a recommendation whether it makes sense to continue or just hold on that. Regardless, we need to do the waterproofing under the tracks. That is critical. Yeah.
Bonnie?
Just quickly, how long does that last? In other words, the waterproofing that was there from before, is that
It's been
30
there
years
since,
old or
no, I think
100
it's been
years
there
old?
since 1920 or so. So it's, but there's also been a lot of leaks. So maybe it doesn't last as long as we think it did. It really needs to be replaced.
But Jack, if you're putting a roof over it all, why do you have to waterproof the floor as well?
Well, the roof
I don't do
has-
that in my kitchen. Why do you do it in a railway station?
So things like snow falling off trains, and melting. Things like the entire roof is not waterproof in terms of the ducts for the exhaust. So those ducts are still open. They always have been. If you did electrified and if GO was running a totally electrified fleet, you wouldn't need those ducts and you might come up with an entirely different roof design. And this kind of gets into the question on what do you do with the roof, right?
But you're still going to have via trains running through there.
Yes. And you still have Amtrak trains coming in there once a day, and yeah, so you still have diesel locomotives in there. The concourse, we're hoping to get access this month. It's kind of touch and go, but it looks like we're going to get access before the end of December, and our contractors are going to start to install the customer service stations, the departure boards, the ticket vending machines, the Presto machines, all the furniture, and we're looking to open sometime early next year with the new concourse. Below this concourse, and here's some pictures, there's an escalator well, there'll be elevators up to the platforms, down to a lower retail level, which you see at the bottom of that escalator well that's covered with the wrap there. So you'll have actually a mixture of the GO concourse and a lower level with retail. So it's kind of exciting. We've talked a lot about...
Is that retail opening this spring?
It's going to be made available to different companies that want to go in there. So I think you'll see some stores taking a while they have to get their branding and whatever they're going to be doing in there. So they'll be bidding on spaces in there, so they'll have a space that they can fit out.
That's not our space, right? That's the city's.
The city space, that's correct.
And what about Cinnabon and McDonald's and all the stuff that people line up in incredibly long lines.
Well, that's
Is that our stuff? Is that going to be on our concourse level?
City, and this
It's going to be pushed down into this lower level?
There'll be, I think, a mix, but most of it would be down at a retail level. Yeah.
Okay.
We talked a lot about all of the enabling work that grade separated some 23 kilometers of the Georgetown South Track, which is now the Kitchener Corridor. This certainly enabled Up Express, but really this is the culmination of a lot of hard work. You heard Greg Percy earlier talk about all of the work in planning, environmental approvals, design, then you get to the construction phase. So here, like 5 years later, we're now starting to see and reap the benefits of all that hard work with this entire section being grade separated. So we've got the West Toronto Diamond, one of the busiest rail-to-rail crossings in North America. It's gone. It's now totally grade separated. So CNCP, GO Transit, VIA, they're all running on separate tracks now and not crossing each other. Grade separated Strawn Avenue, the Weston Tunnel is done. What we're doing now is placing tracks in there, putting some pedestrian bridges in, but more or less tracks and signaling work is taking place now, and this is all leading up to opening up Express here in the spring. This shows the progress on the station down here at Union. Ellis Don is the contractor. It's moving along well, and the progress up at Union's, up at the Pearson Airport you saw yesterday, where the event where Bruce, the Premier, and the Minister were all standing in the new station, and it's just kind of exciting to see. And this is a slide of some of the construction fit out and some of the beautiful designs they have in that station with the platform edge doors, since when you open the door you're exposed. So that's all I have. It's great progress. It's nice to see that all the hard work at the front end is rewarded at the back end, and just keep the clearances coming, and we'll keep the projects, keep the clearances and the money coming, and we'll keep the projects moving. Right.
Jack, is this your first presentation to a public session as the Chief Capital Officer?
Yes, I believe it is.
So first, congratulations on your promotion to Chief Capital Officer of Metrolinx. Second, how's that structure working, integrating all the rapid transit and all the GO construction all under one roof and under one person to lead it all? How's it working first 3 months?
It's a challenge. We have something like 220 people in GO capital infrastructure and had about 60, 70 people on the rapid transit side. So merging that together into a 300-person unit is a challenge. The rewarding part is that a lot of people in the two groups get it. It makes a lot of sense to have one group responsible for delivering these projects. And we're seeing a lot of synergy in terms of standardizing procedures, how we do cost reporting, how we track budgets, how we handle change orders and contingencies. And I think the board is starting to see that, certainly at the Audit and Finance Committee. I think they're starting to see some of the benefits of a common approach to doing business. And that's really what we're trying to achieve. And gosh, there's a lot of good people in it. So that's the kind of the exciting part. There really are some really talented people in this construction division here at GO and at Metrolinx.
That's very positive, thank you. Are there any further questions to Jack? Rahul, last question.
You've heard me ask this question before. I'm always impressed by how much we're doing in this respect. You want the money flowing. I think we've got like 140 odd high rises being built in the city as well, so there's a ton of stuff happening. What's industry's capacity to really support all the type of work we're doing right now? Do you see that stretching and straining, or to your earlier point, if the money keeps flowing to you and the projects are out there, they're going to get done?
We actually gave a presentation to the Audit and Finance Committee yesterday on what we've seen in the last 3.5 years, who's bidding our work. And actually we have, I think, pretty competitive bids on most of our work. What we do see is there's some specialized areas. And I think looking forward, there's some specialized areas like signaling where we only got one bidder, but we still feel we got a reasonably good price. how do we attract more people with those specialized skills to this big program that we have coming in front of us? So what we're looking at is more of a focused outreach to the firms that have some specialized expertise that we're going to need for the Regional Express Rail program. And same on the engineering side. We typically have no shortage of engineering firms bidding our work, but there's some specialized work, like, again, signaling, electrification. Those are very specialized areas, and not a lot of firms in North America that do that, but there are 3 or 4 of them. We want to have all 3 or 4 of them at the table bidding our work in order to get competitive prices. So we need to do some strategic outreach. As far as trades, we've been working very closely with the craft trades. We're going to need a lot of electricians. We're going to need a lot of track workers. We're going to need a lot of laborers. So we've been working very closely in terms of trying to identify what are the trades and where do we need to do the training, and working with Ministry of, boy, I'm going to get this wrong. Do you know, Bruce? Ministry of Education and Colleges and Universities. The training colleges.
Lonnie's probably the expert on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Training colleges.
Right, and also in our community benefits program that we have on the Eglinton Crosstown, we work very closely with the Toronto Community Benefit Network, and they are focusing training efforts as well. The Carpenters Union have developed a special concrete forming training program. We're going to need a lot with underground stations. We're going to need a lot of trained trades that know how to do these different underground concrete forming techniques, et cetera, like you've seen out here on Union Station, et cetera. So pretty exciting. I think the hard part is, how do you predict how much more construction is going to be incurring in the other sectors? That's a hard part, but it hasn't overheated yet, and I think if we do some things strategically, it shouldn't.
Let me just address your point. I think over the last 5 or 6 years, with the amount of construction that we've been doing, I think it's been a big issue that we have a good procurement system, and the Audit and Finance Committee is probably very focused on that. I think it's an issue to discuss just about every meeting. Anytime any contract of any size, look at it very carefully. What struck me over the years is really how competitive most of the bids are. I mean, it's not unusual to get 4 or 5 bidders, and the top 3 might be within 5% of each other. So it's always been very competitive. I know that I had a similar concern 4 or 5 years ago when we were launching this, that are we exhausting capacity? We did an analysis that management brought to us with respect to who's bidding and what's bidding. And it's surprising enough, even though we're doing a lot, there's an awful lot of construction going on across Canada. And we're part of that, but we're not overwhelming. So there's I think we get competitive prices, and I don't think we're in danger of stressing the system too much.
Marianne, you had the last question.
Yeah, I want to ask, I mean, the scale of some of these projects is very daunting, you know, but it's one day at a time. That's the way you get things built. But how do you determine what goes to an AFP or what goes to design build? Is that relative to scale?
In part, it's scale and looking at the need. If it's an urgent need, like a grade separation, that might not be big enough that you would put that into an AFP. So you would look at something else. One of the big advantages for an AFP, on, like for this instance, the Crosstown, that I see that maybe isn't even in the value for money analysis, is a 30-year maintenance period that is competitively bid, that makes sure that money is there to maintain the asset, and actually by maintaining the asset strategically, you're extending the life of the asset. It's been shown on bridges, for instance, that if you do maintenance at critical points in time, an average bridge should last at least 80 years. If you don't, you're replacing it after 50 years. So that's huge. So I think that the structure of that AFP on certain types of contract where it makes a lot of sense to put the maintenance piece in there, those are considerations. We will be sitting down with Infrastructure Ontario in the new year We'll be kind of throwing spaghetti on the wall and looking at the body of work that's coming at us and trying to do a determination of what makes sense, what's the best way to move this. And sometimes it's a schedule consideration. We need to do this fast. What's the fastest way of doing it? Versus a bigger package that you're going to go through a longer procurement process to get the right team on board.
Jack, good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations again on your appointment. Robert Siddle, next item up. Oh, Greg's doing it. I had Robert's name on this. No, both of you. Amendment to bylaw number 2A, Go Transit fare proposed increase. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Go Transit is proposing a February 1st, 2015 fare increase that would average out to about 5% across our 7 corridors. Go is a fare by distance fare structure company, so the approach we've taken again is to adjust each fare by so many cents per distance, but they do average out to approximately 5% across the board. In so doing, we would hold firm on the discounts percent in terms of for students and seniors, and also the discount for Presto off a cash fare. And just for reference for the board, the reason this becomes very important is at least threefold. We are adding service, and more importantly, we're adding reliable service, and we're building infrastructure capacity to enable us to add even more service. We also have contracts with key partners such as Bombardier, where their contracts have escalations within them, and this fare increase would enable us to cover off those escalations. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Bruce, we received a written submission from Mr. Theodoros, who'd been in correspondence with you with some concern. I promised to table his correspondence with the board, and you all have copies of it that you've seen. Can you give us a 45-second version of that, or pass it back to Greg?
Yes, sure. For clarity, the challenge was for the Richmond Hill corridor, is there a warranted increase on that corridor that's in parity with increases on the other corridor? My response, and I think that was a fair question to pose.
Concern being that we have less service on that corridor. We've made investments in more service on the other corridors?
That would be the
and therefore maybe we should charge less because we provide less service.
Correct. So my response would be that we look at our investment on a system basis. So we have 7 corridors. We invest for infrastructure. We introduce new service to balance service, bus and rail, across corridors based on our read of ridership potential. So we really look at our business on a network basis. Even on a micro operational level, we can start a train on one corridor and ends on another one. We do not run, in essence, 7 railways. We run 1. And that's how we approach the business across the board.
So if you go 14 kilometers on one corridor, you get charged the same price as if you go 14 kilometers on another corridor.
That's correct.
So this recommendation is treat all corridors alike, contrary to the submission that was made by the citizen.
Correct.
Questions to Greg? Any concerns from anybody?
I guess it begs a question, Rob. Have we looked at an alternative ever in our history, or has this been from the beginning?
The fare by corridor?
Yeah.
We've been fare by distance as a structure from the beginning. We have looked at different options. We looked at flat increases, flat percent, flat fixed dollar or cent. And we really think this is the fairest approach that we can introduce. And so this is the consistent approach now for probably a number of years.
Bonnie, will you move approval?
Yes, I'd move it.
Howard, you behind Bonnie? Any concerns? Any further discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? I see none. Thank you. Spend it well. Keep increasing the service, please. That brings us to the quarterly reports. The first one up is Kathy Haley. I don't know that Kathy wants to speak anymore, and good as she was, I'm not sure we need to hear more. Does anybody have any questions on Kathy's report? I see none. The next was Presto, Robert Hollis. Were there any questions on Robert's quarterly report? I hear none. Next is Greg Percy in Go Transit. Greg, you've had a pretty good innings today. Any questions, further questions to Greg? I see none. Leslie Wu. Leslie, where are you? Come on up. There must be a question to you. How are your various studies going? You feeling good? You got good momentum though?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the studies we're recalibrating with the RER considerations. So there are a couple, like the Young Relief, where we're having to reintegrate the stats and the analysis and the data and the service concept of RER because it modifies some. So I think for all the studies, that's one of the key elements that we're re-looking at. The ledge review is progressing. We're doing a lot of our background research now, which is as we had planned. And yeah, that's the Go service planning is progressing well. I mean, we're looking at our board changes for the new year. And on the design excellence front, we're sort of advancing a lot of work through the crosstown. It's becoming a precedent for how we integrate design excellence through all our other projects. And yeah,
so you feel good.
We had our annual Smart Commute Awards last week before last, very well received by the community. So
I didn't want this to be the first board meeting in 5 years where you didn't have a presentation. That's why.
I was hoping I could get away.
You're hoping you're going to duck this time. No way. No way. Any questions, Les? Yes, Richard. How's movement of goods going?
This is my last crack.
Go for it.
So, and I always have to tell Marianne, she's much better at this than I am because she's been far more successful at design excellence than I have been at goods movement. But Leslie, we had a meeting just recently, the Goods Movement Forum,
the forum.
And I guess one concern I have is about making sure we keep some strong momentum happening in that area. And I was a little disappointed that we didn't have as many of the service providers, particularly the private sector operators there. Mm-hmm. And so I'm worried that they might be becoming disengaged. So it would be, I think it's important to kind of try to re-engage that group, but also then with a solid plan about what is it we're going to do to actually make some things happen. Because I got some feedback from some people about, okay, we're going, but we're not really seeing a whole lot of change taking place and benefiting the goods movement sector. We're doing studies, and that's good, but what about some activity that's actually delivering some results for those people?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think we'll make an effort to do that. I think I actually see RER as an opportunity to engage the urban freight community as well, because there is some interesting interchanges, but how we implement RER and what it means for logistics and movement of goods, whether on rail or on highway. So I think we're due for a bit of maybe in the same way we're readjusting a lot of things to the timeline of RER, we could similarly do that. And of course, we have a strategy that we need to start pushing harder on. So you're gone but not forgotten.
You'll stay in touch with them, I hope.
Yes. No, I hope you will continue. Actually, I hope you'll continue to be engaged with the forum, because I think your leadership has been very important to keeping the energy going.
Thank you, Leslie.
Okay.
Any other questions, Les? Next is strategic communications. Anything for Judy? I see none. And last is capital projects. We've just heard from Jack. Was there any matters Jack didn't address? Anybody wanted to pick up? Thank you, Jack. No questions. That brings us to lunch. The end of the session. We'll do a media session outside. Bruce and myself. We'll take 15 minutes for lunch, and then we'll reconvene in this room.
Yes.
We'll reconvene in this room in 15 minutes to do our commercial business and complete day. Thank you all very much for coming. Happy holidays. We'll see you in the new year.
Well done, Sheriff.